Hi, welcome back. We're going to talk today about the assignment of an agreement of purchase and sale. And I will briefly touch on the assignments, but also new home sales and some pre-construction, just briefly about that. So let's carry on. What is an assignment? Actually, an assignment is someone who's going to sell a contract or the rights that they have purchased a property, not closed yet, will be closed in the future. Now, traditionally, we think of these as like new home sales or pre-construction. But it's not always the case, but majority of the time it is. It could actually be a resale property. Excuse me, but having said that, let's move on for a bit and talk a little bit about how does this assignment work and who actually are these people. So let's find out. First and foremost, the assigner is the original buyer. So that's the person who showed up in that cold day or at some kind of a site to buy this property off plans traditionally and now is waiting. Now, in the interim, they decided that they would like to sell their piece of paper. An assignee says, I'll buy it, and that's the new buyer. So we have an original buyer and we have a new buyer. Truth of the matter is, you're not going to really see the sellers here at this time, the real seller slash the developer or builder, because they're not the actual ones that are contracted at this point. But here's a question. Can an agreement of purchase and sale involving any type of real estate transaction be assigned? Truth of the matter is, yes, it can, unless there's something in that agreement that is providing that it cannot be assigned or prohibiting any assignments or needs some form of an approval. So let's go for this typical assignments, what they are. The forms themselves traditionally you as a realtor with the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board might see a Form 150 or a 145. Again, depending on what kind of an assignment we're doing, a condo or a resale or pre-constructed home. So here we go. The assignee in this case here, the sample that I want to use are two people that are involved, the assignee and the assignor. Now note the assignee in this case is buying an agreement to purchase from the assignor. But what are they buying? The assignor's interest. That's the key. They're buying their interest in the property. They don't actually physically own it, but they're, again, I keep saying they're buying that piece of paper. So when they do this, what's going to be included in all this purchase price? Well, the total purchase price is going to be the price that the assignee is paying to an assignor, plus included in that amount is the amount that they actually originally paid. So, depending on the setup of their agreements and depending on what they want to do or how they're going to calculate this, I will show you a couple of different variations. There are many, but I'm going to just show you two very basic variations if you just bear with me. So here we go. Let's try a sample. Let's assume that this assignor originally had paid $520,000. The assignee goes, I'll give you $620,000. Again, basically saying, I'll give you $620 for that piece of paper that you paid $520 for. Now, the original deal that was done shows a $10,000 deposit in this case. ABC Realty Inc. is going to hold this deposit. So we're going to go into now Schedule B. This is where the calculations start to show how are we going to break this down. But remember what we said. We're paying $620,000 for a $520,000 piece of paper. The assignee, again, we're going to identify who these people are, what they're buying. And here's the mathematics of this, Part B. 620, like I said, including the original price. So with that in mind, we're going to just show you here that the original purchase that was made by the assignor, when they bought it, they gave $520,000. With them, they had given a $60,000 deposit. Now, simple mathematics means that they would need to pay, if they stayed in this deal without any assignee, it was just them two, $520,000, they would owe $460,000 to a builder on that date set for closing, obviously subject to adjustments. But we're going to carry on and just show you, remember, the assignee is buying from the assignor. Profits about $100,000 based on our $620 and the $520 of the original. So let's look at the rest of this part, Schedule B. Now, payment outstanding is $100,000. We all agree. $10,000 was given in this agreement for $10,000 as a deposit. That means there's $90,000 left on this particular setup with the final closing date. So in essence, what is happening here is that assignor, when it comes to closing this property, would have had to pay the 520, but the assignee is taking it over. So the assignee is saying, I know I need to pay $610,000 on the date set for closing, but that'll be subject to adjustments, which means the builder out of that 610 wants their amount, in this case $460,000. The fact that the assignor said I want $100,000 profit, they already got $10,000. We still owe them $90,000. So if we take a look at the quick math, that shows 610. Remember, 620 we paid, we gave you $10,000. That leaves us 610. 610 minus the 460, that would be the outstanding amount still owed to a builder, leaves $150,000. The assigner goes, well, great, I got my $90,000 profit, and I will get the return of my original $60,000 deposit on closing. Boom. Simple. We'll keep it as simple as that. But here's a secondary option. Again, the price was still $520, the original price, and here's the offer again. Remember, we gave $620. $520, $60,000 deposit. Again, still showing $100,000 profit. Either way, that is what the assigner is getting. So let's take a look at this breakdown, except this time, this is going to be consent to assign from the original seller. That is what they're waiting for. So here we go. Part 4, or question 4 on part Schedule B, shows a total of $160,000. Why is that here? Because this assigner goes, not only do I want my $100,000 profit, I would like my $60,000 original deposit that I gave paid up once there is a consent from the seller, in this case slash builder. Well, there's your $160,000. Remember, we still only gave you $10,000 on this agreement. Right now, if I look at that, that means I still owe you $150,000. Remember, from receipt of consent. So in essence, there's no real big difference here, except one is getting paid up front, their profit plus their deposit back immediately when they get consent, or when I say immediately, within obviously a few days. Still, the buyer, in this case here, will still owe the builder $460,000. Remember, they're already holding $60,000 deposit from that original purchase from that assigner. So remember, no matter what, lawyers will be making the adjustments on this, and it's really not to panic. As we can see, some of this can be also edited. Now, either way, not to panic, because this always works itself out. Okay, as I said, I wanted to show you 2 different variations, and there could be many depending on the agreement, purchase, and sale. So here are some of the frequently asked questions when we talk about assignments. Can the assigner actually have their realtor put this property on the MLS? Truth of the matter is, it really depends on what's in that agreement. Some developers may say absolutely not, or they say with a caveat, the only way you can do it, X days or whatever. Please make sure you understand that, because you want to make sure that the assigner has this right to do this, and not only that, instead of spinning your wheels and wasting a lot of time, find out from the source, ask them directly, or ask this assigner to make sure they ask some questions. Now, as we move on, a couple of other questions are, does the original purchase and price include any upgrades or separate? Again, I'm going to tell you, this all depends on what's in that agreement, regardless of how deposits are going to be paid, how improvements are paid over and above, or do I pay it now, do I have to pay it later, or is it in increments? Either way, references may be on closing, may be upon acceptance of the seller's consent, or may be otherwise described as agreed in the assignment and in the agreement itself. One of the biggest questions that usually you'll get from some of these people purchasing are there any HST? What about capital gains? These are very valid questions that people will ask. Strongly recommend, as I said before, this is not going to always be as straightforward as we think. Assignees are easy to do as far as putting the deal together, but explaining some of this HST or rebates and capital gains strongly recommend possibly a financial planner or an accountant. Well, that's about as much as I can make this as simplified as I can do at this point. I hope this has helped. Just showed you some of the basic math. Don't get too confused. As I said before, lawyers and that will always work it out. And don't be embarrassed or upset if somebody calls you and says, listen, we're just tweaking some of the math. No problem. But I think you have the general idea about either way, a signee and a signer are making a deal. They're buying each other's piece of paper. How does the assigner get paid? Well, it depends on the setup or what the agreement will allow for. Now, as I said earlier, most people think that assignments are traditionally your new homes or pre-construction properties and that, but it actually could be a resale property. Not as common, but can be. Now, on that note, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the new homes and the pre-construction. Now, this is an opportunity for some realtors that feel that maybe this could be their niche. Maybe they'd like to get into this type of sales. Again, it depends on, who they're associated with and who may have these in some of these offices or brokerages that they may be working with, or they may be actually working directly with the developer. But we're going to keep it simple that you're at an office and you work with an office and they happen to have some pre-construction or condo sales sites available for some of the realtors to possibly get involved with. Now, questions about how are they buying, where are they going to buy all this? This is going to be taught really through what we call our team leader. Traditionally, most brokerages will have some form of a team leader involved in their brokerage, and that brokerage would be set up that the team leader has their opportunities to bring together either some people or a team to develop a team that will help and develop and sell whatever that team leader's connections might be. Now, that team leader could be connected to builders, could be condo sites, could be custom even homes that are brand new that are being built. Commission plans is set up again through the leader. Now, our brokerage is very proud of these great pre-constructions and teams that we have. They are great resource centers, but it's not unheard of for them to reach out to the brokerage or manager, broker of record, and ask, is there anybody that you can refer or recommend to us that works in our brokerage that might be interested in becoming part of our team to sell some of these pre-construction homes? But what will be expected of you if you do become part of these teams? Product knowledge. You're not going to have that right away, but you have to learn and understand what these terminologies mean when you're dealing with these types of properties. Follow-up and calls of leads, the team leader will expect that of you to make sure that you're doing your job. You have to learn about the deposits and how the deposits work. If you're working on a site, it might be a condo site. Are they in increments? Are they new home sales like a subdivision? Are they going to be at certain stages of the property? Again, you learn this. Is it a percentage or is it an amount? Some terminology that might be foreign to you, you may have heard it earlier in your courses maybe, but PDIs and CCP, which mean pre-delivery inspections, or certification, completion, and possession. What does that actually mean to a buyer? The buyers are actually going to ask you these questions. They may want you to tell them. You only may have an understanding of it, but you really shouldn't be explaining it too detailed. Again, you have a team leader to go to if there is issues. Also understand what clearly you are expected to do. In other words, if someone came to you and said, love this condo, I see it's listed at $500,000. Can we negotiate that? Again, that's where you will have to have some directions and understanding of what you can and cannot say, or where you will need the approval or subject to an approval from your team leader to go, please explain to me, how far can I get into this deal? Now, again, one thing with that team leader, whoever they may be, he or she or a team, make sure you always get something in writing. Make sure you make it prudent for yourself to understand exactly where you stand with them and how it all works regarding resales and so on and so forth. Now, as an FYI, back on June 25th, 2021, the Ontario government had introduced a new code of ethics, which actually came into play July 1st, 2021. The reality is, it was something that TREB and OREA had been advocating for a long, long time. Quite frankly, it's pretty simple. They want to make sure that all licensed builders adhere to integrity, honesty, and do not intimidate or coerce any potential buyers. Now, in addition, which is really amazing, is that the code has also empowered home construction regulators and give them the right to deal with anyone that is actually basically the bad apple out there. So they can deal with them through either denying them a license, taking away basically their rights to make money and build, or fines and etc. Well, listen, I hope this hasn't been too long-winded for you today. As I said, I wanted to touch a little bit about the mathematics on the assignments and introduce some of you to the new pre-construction or condo markets if you're interested in that, and how kind of the general lay of the land would be. But again, please, as always, if you have any questions, any concerns, always reach out to the leadership team. I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.